And usually writer's block was not a big deal for me because I always took a bit of time between books. But I had signed the biggest deal of my 20-plus-year career for a trilogy that would bring to life the tortured love between a beautiful ex-supermodel-turned-foreign rescue worker and a hard-bitten ex-Navy SEAL determined to protect her in war-torn, made-up Delania. The first book started slowly, but word of mouth drove impressive sales. The second book of the trilogy was due to be released in early June, less than 2 months away. Already the buzz was intense. Pre-sale numbers alone had earned me the third-place spot in People magazine's Best Summer Reads list, a slot on Good Morning America, and book tours across the country. That was the kind of success that might let me quit teaching creative writing classes every fall, which I did because I could not yet support myself solely on my writing. Yes, I know, writers are supposed to be rich. The truth is that most of us are not consistently on the top of the bestseller lists, and are not in the same tax bracket as Stephen King. If I lived somewhere other than northern New Jersey, I could scrape by on book royalties alone, but I wasn't about to move to Iowa just for a more reasonable cost of living. And then there was the cable network option. That's right, an option for the Delania trilogy to be made into a miniseries, produced by a very important actress/producer. An option that would give me not just quit teaching money, but, dare I say it, beach house money. I'd wanted a beach house since the first time I'd set my tiny 2-year-old feet in the ocean. I remember it clearly. The sudden cold of the water, the sharp tang of salt in the air, the sand crunching between my toddler toes. This is what I want, I thought then. I want to live here. I hadn't changed my mind over the past 40 years, and the option was finally going to make it real. But thanks to Game of Thrones, which had to have its finale written on the fly because the author had not finished the last book, nobody was going to sign anything until the final book was on my publisher's desk. So, everything I had ever hoped for as a writer was right there, sitting in front of me, waiting. All I had to do was finish the damn book. Correction. Start the damn book. I met Greg Howard 7 years ago at a cocktail party given by Drew University, which was where I'd been teaching my creative writing course for years. Greg was a writer of political nonfiction and would be giving a writing seminar there for the first time in the spring, and the cocktail party was to welcome him aboard. I took my time with him, carefully weighing the cost of a relationship. After all, he was younger than I and, quite honestly, a bit intense. But I pursued him, because he was, for all intents and purposes, my perfect alpha male. Strong and sexy, exciting, with an air of danger about him. He had, in the course of his career, survived being held at gunpoint, stranded in the middle of the Amazon, and taken hostage by a small but determined guerrilla band somewhere in Africa. He was also charismatic and bright and engaging, funny and, well, let's be honest again here, passionate. As in, the mere touch of his lips on the back of my neck was enough to turn my knees to jelly. One of the reasons I was so good writing about mind-blowing sex was because whenever Greg was around, that's what I got, pretty much whenever I wanted it. Did that make me shallow? No, we spent even more quality time out of bed. But I have to say, the thought of those fingers and that mouth of his tended to make me gloss over his greatest and most fatal flaw, his ego. He had won a Pulitzer and a National Book Award, and had been asked to speak before Congress and the UN. He had groupies, and he loved it. He had never, in all the time I'd known him, shown the least bit of hesitation or self-doubt about anything he'd done. He was absolutely confident in all his choices. That's sexy. But it was also starting to take a toll. I recently had begun to feel a bit tired of always being the second most important person in the room when we were alone together. We'd been living together for almost 4 years. Well, living together when he was actually in New Jersey teaching his seminar. But that was only for 6 months of the year. He spent the rest of his time on the road, in one hellish country or another, researching his books. And when the research was done, he went up to his remote cabin in Maine to write. Alone. Since his writing seminar was every spring, he was currently in New Jersey. On the day I wrote my epitaph, he had come home.